Hi, I don't really know what this video is going to be. I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, and that is things that I learned from my last situationship. I would love to just make a video about all the ways he did me wrong, but I don't think that's going to be very helpful for anyone. I mean, it might make me feel a little bit better, but I think instead, I'm going to talk about how, I don't want to say the things that I did wrong, but the way I kind of turned a blind side towards red flags that I knew were red flags and should have listened to my gut about. So, and I also, full disclosure, I have worked on this a lot in therapy. So part of it, even though, well, I guess that can be useful too, right? To go back and relive some experiences and understand now what was actually going on and how you're being manipulated. And yeah, I mean, so when I'm talking about it now, this is after the fact of it's been like 2 years, and also I have been in therapy back in therapy for a year. And yeah, so I think this might be helpful for me. And hopefully it might be helpful to somebody else watching who is in a situationship or a relationship and something doesn't feel right. So that is, I guess, the first point, is that if something doesn't feel right, then something isn't right. Don't ignore that feeling because you're feeling it for a reason. You might not consciously understand what that reason is yet, but don't let somebody convince you that, oh, that's nothing, or you shouldn't be concerned about that. My example of this was when I had just started getting romantically involved with this guy who I'd known for a year before as a friend, so that complicated things a bit. I was more inclined, I felt that he was a good person and trustworthy. So then really out of nowhere things became romantic, and I remember feeling really used in the first week or so, because he went from texting me all the time and always complimenting me and just I guess you could say love bombing in a way. He just was very attentive and talkative, and literally probably I think okay, so I'm trying to say this in a way that I can upload it and my mom can watch it and I won't be embarrassed, but I'm just gonna say this. Mom, don't listen. Just mute your speakers for a minute. So now that my mom's not listening, so the first time that he and I had sex, immediately after, there was this drastic change in the way he was talking to me. Mainly that he was talking to me way less. It was a very noticeable change, and it all happened after we had sex for the first time. And so I felt really used, and I told him about it, and he kind of said some things. This is all a while ago now, so I mean the memories aren't crystal clear anymore, but he said something over text to help kind of ease my worry a bit. And then, a few more days passed, and then I started feeling really weird about it again. So I asked him if we could meet up and talk in person. And he right away was like, yeah, sure, where do you want to meet up? So we went and talked, and I basically told him, like, I feel kind of used because, like, you know, as soon as we have sex, you stop talking to me. And he responded by saying that I was actually making him feel bad because he's a good guy and everyone knows he's a good guy, and like the fact that I even thought that he would use me like that was hurtful to him. So the thing to note here is that I was the person who had the issue, who was upset with something that he did, and I left that conversation apologizing for feeling upset because it made him feel bad. Again, I didn't realize this at the time. At the time, I was like, you know, because I had known him as a friend, and so I had this impression of him being a very good guy too, and so I was like, wow, that's a first. Like, I'm usually with such assholes that, like, this guy actually feels hurt that I made him out to be an asshole. And that's, you know, and I do think there's some merit to the point that, like, every relationship is different, and you can't bring in, like, past bad experiences into a new relationship. But there are things that you can and should learn from past relationships. So that's, so that was really the start of everything. Like, I knew that there was something different in the way he communicated with me. And he did at first try to tell me that, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm texting the exact same. And I was ready for that argument. I kind of knew he was going to make that argument because, I mean, I think that's the go-to for anybody. So I was like, no, I reread stuff and double-checked, and there's a noticeable, like, very noticeable change in how you're texting me. And so, yeah, he couldn't use that argument, so then he started saying about how he's such a good guy and no one would ever accuse him of that. Then, I'd say, you know, we kept hanging out, and I would really notice his, like, odd behavior online. And I didn't know, like, it was very confusing to me. Like, he would not like my photos that I was putting up, and he would, like, not respond if I sent him a meme or reel or whatever. And then I would also, as I was scrolling, I would see things that he was liking, because when you, like, interact with somebody a lot on Instagram, their name always pops up if they've liked something on your feed. So I would always see his name pop up for, like, other girls at the gym, and, like, you know, like, if we had posted pictures around the same time, like, he liked hers but not mine, and like, just stupid little petty things like that. And I'm not that type of person, and I never have been that type of person, but for some reason I was really feeling that way with him. And now I know it's because he never offered any kind of security in their relationship, and that it's okay to want security and to want, like, validation of their feelings in a relationship. But I was very much, like, and I kind of always been, like, trying to be the cool girl that, like, doesn't get mad about anything. And that, let me just tell you right now, that is not the way to be, because it always ends up bad for the girl. Trust me. So the other thing too, why I was being cool girl, was that he had just gotten out of a 6-year relationship, like, a couple months before we became romantically involved. And so I think that is fair, to, like, you know, give someone some space when they have just gotten out of such a long relationship. But at the same time, I think I took it a little bit too far. And also I think now looking back on it, it was still way too soon for him. Like, I ended up being a rebound because the girl that he started dating, as soon as things with me ended, he just got engaged to last week. So that was cool. No, I'm not bitter. No, I'm more so just annoyed at the whole thing. But whatever, I'll get to that. So these things in mind, I'm like trying to be the cool girl. We go to the same gym and I see him there and he's my friend. And so like I have a lot of different motivations to like, I don't know, be chill and not get mad at stuff. And so the next time there was an issue was when my friend got into nursing school, and so a couple of us like from the gym all went out to celebrate for her. And Mom, turn off your sound again. We made a plan that he was gonna come to my house and sleep over. But we were going, like, he was gonna come here in an Uber, or maybe, no, I think he drove. I don't know if he drove or Ubered here, but he got here somehow. I think he drove. No, I think he Ubered. And so then, anyways, he gets here, and I mean, again, Mom, your speakers better be off. We had really good sexual chemistry. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there. And I'm a pretty, I have a pretty high libido for a girl. And so when he got there, I kind of like made a move on him, and we had just like a quickie before going to meet up with our friends. And so this becomes relevant later. So anyways, the whole night, again, like, we're keeping this very under wraps. Like, nobody really knows what's going on, although my friends say that they knew because like him and I showed up together, but nobody said anything. I mean, they probably knew. I don't know. Anyway, so we get there, and some of the guys that he's friends with are there. And so I pretty much hang out with the girls all night, and he hangs out with his guys all night. And I'm like, yeah, he buys me drinks and whatnot. But we really didn't talk, like, at all the entire night. And so it comes time to leave, and he just looks over at me, and he's like, you know, I think I'm just going to Uber home. Like, I'm just going to go home. And immediately I was like, really? And I didn't want to cause a scene there, but he kept pushing it because I guess it was obvious I looked angry. And so I started going into it with him, and I was like, we literally like haven't hung out. Like, all we did was have sex and come here, and we haven't even been talking. Like, I thought you were gonna come back so that we could like have time together, just us. And he's like, yeah, well, I was really allergic to your dogs. And he did come over and start like sneezing really bad. So I mean, there was that, but I wish if he was really like, that was the reason why, he would have said so as soon as we left for the place. Like, Jill, I don't think I can sleep over tonight. Like, that was really miserable with my allergies. Then I don't think I would have been so annoyed, but it was like the end of the night. We were about to leave and get an Uber to my house when he tells me I'm just going to go back to my house. And so I was really, really pissed, and it showed on my face. And so he made me like start talking about it in the bar, but then I don't know, we kind of came to like a stopping point so that we could like leave and say goodbye to everybody. And then we get an Uber back to my house first, so that like if he's gonna go back to his house, I guess maybe he left stuff at my house or something, I don't know. So we went back to my house, and we got out of the Uber, and that's when we started like talking about it. And I was like, you know, like, we had this conversation already about me feeling used by you, and then this is another situation where I feel used by you because you basically got what you wanted, and now you just want to go home when we had this plan for you to stay here with me. And I think, yeah, it is hard because it was a while ago now. It's going to be 3 years ago, like this February. But basically, like, it was just that I felt really used and upset because I wanted to cuddle and, like, get to actually hang out with him, and he just wanted to go home. So, but then I also didn't want him just to stay just because, like, I was making him and have him resent me for that. And so we eventually came to an agreement, because he's like, well, right now I'm just fucked because it's a no-win situation for me. Either I go home and you're upset because I left, or I stay here and you're upset because you think I resent you for making me stay here. And so that time, I feel like that was actually a productive conversation. And he ended up taking allergy medicine and was fine. And then, yeah, that was that. That was also, though, the last time he ever came to my house, even though I asked him multiple times in the future, like, to come over, and he said he would, and then he just didn't. Okay. Then, let's see here. Another thing that I learned. Oh. It's that, like, if they want to, they will. And I've known this in the past, and I've known it before, but for whatever reason with him, he was just able, or I allowed him to talk me out of every gut feeling I had. Like, if anything, I was at fault for being too communicative and giving him way too many opportunities to just spin a story and make excuses for his behavior. Like, one of the main things throughout the situation was that he was a really horrible texter, and I'm not even a good texter. So for me to complain about somebody being a bad texter is, I've never done that before. This was the first time. Oh, and then during this time, I also unfollowed him on, or no, I just deleted my Instagram and possibly Facebook, but definitely Instagram, because I didn't want to be that type of person who was, like, looking at what their boyfriend or whatever is looking at on Instagram and, like, why is he liking her pictures and not mine? Like, I don't want to be that person. And so rather than have a conversation with him about, like, hey, it makes me feel really kind of insecure when you're over here liking other girls' pictures and not mine, like, what's up with that? I just decided to delete my Instagram so I wouldn't have to see it. And that, I think, is an example of too much being the cool girl. Like, now, if I could redo it, I would just say what I just said, that, like, this is weird. Why are you liking their pictures and not mine? And if he makes a big deal about it, like, that kind of tells you everything. Like, that means he knows it's wrong and he's just doing it anyway, and he's mad that you're holding him accountable for it. So, yeah. So I had deleted my Instagram so that I didn't have to see him liking all these other girls' pictures. And then around March or April, I think it was April, it was when COVID was getting, like, really serious, and our gym had been closed, and he, like, I don't know if he even let me know or if I found out through somebody else, but I found out that he was going back to the gym, and being someone that I am romantically involved with, like, that really freaked me out, because, like, if you get COVID, like, you're gonna give it to me. And, like, in my opinion, like, if you want to take that risk yourself, then that's fine. But when there are other people involved, like, I don't know, maybe you would want to talk to them about it first. And so I brought, like, I don't know, the way it kind of went was that he was right off the bat, like, trying to make it not a big deal when it was a big deal to me. Like, he was saying it, like, in really, like, short terms, like, yeah, I'm going to the gym, and I don't know if people are wearing masks, and, like, not really answering my questions. And so I got frustrated, and I was like, well, if you're doing this, then I'm not gonna see you, essentially is what I said. And so at this point, we're like 3 months into our thing, and I have pretty strong feelings for him already, and I felt that they were reciprocated. And so I was, like, shocked when I said that to him, and he responded with basically just, okay, fine. And I was like, what? Like, it sounds so dumb now. I don't like it, but I didn't expect him to just be like, all right, bye. And I wish with all my heart that I would have seen that for what it was, because someone who's willing to do that does not care about you. I don't care what they say or what they do. If they are willing to drop you at the first sign of any kind of confrontation and not even try to work it out, just say, okay, bye, that person does not care about you. And so if I could go back, I would have just ended it there. Like, oh, okay, it's that easy for you to say goodbye? All right, fuck you, bye. That's what I wish I would have done. But what I did instead was start, like, going back and forth with him about, like, why are you doing this? Like, I thought that we were having fun. Like, I thought you actually, like, kind of cared about me. And he's like, well, you know, this has been a very short time, and now this is, like, our third big argument. And I thought that was kind of weird that he, like, kept track of arguments like that. Like, I can see how it might be important, but I don't know. I felt like all of our arguments got worked out eventually. And so then, oh my goodness. So then, he brings up that I had just gone to a friend's birthday in March, and it was at her house, and, like, her parents were there, her sister, and then a couple other of our friends, and, like, we took a group picture, and she posted it. And that was, like, a week or two, maybe just a week prior to that. And, like, he saw the photos and everything. He knew I was there. But it was not until I brought up that I was uncomfortable with him going to the gym that he brought up that I was being a hypocrite because I went to my friend's birthday and there were no one was wearing masks there, and was so and so there because they've been at the gym, and I didn't see you complaining then. And also talking about how I get Starbucks I don't get it every day, but he said every day. And he's like, you really think, like, it's safe to go and get Starbucks every day and, like, you know, transfer money, blah, blah, blah. And that argument always really bothered me because he was only saying that after I had complained. It was like he was, like, keeping dirt on me to use at a time when it was convenient for him. Like, if that bothered you, why did you not say anything until I brought up that something you did bothered me? Like, again, it's that pattern of I have an issue with something and he somehow is able to turn it so that now he's the victim and I've done something to him. And so I will say with that COVID argument. Like, I think I didn't handle that great, I will say that, because then we eventually did talk it over, and I was like, talking about how it made me really, really uncomfortable and scared that it was so easy for him to just, like, be like, all right, bye. And, like, you know, I didn't want that to happen. Like, that was a big fear of mine, and I told him that. And so we kind of talked it out, and he said, like, I was like, well, now I'm just afraid to, like, if you do something that does bother me, I'm afraid to tell you about it, because I feel like you're gonna be like, that's the last time, like, we're arguing, I'm done with this. Like, how do I know now that you're not gonna just do that at any time? And he's like, no, I don't want you to feel like that about it. Like, I don't want you to feel like that. I think just if, like, the way that you bring up things to me, like, if you could do it in, like, a more calm way or something like that, then, you know, I won't get as upset. And because I felt like I did overreact a little bit with the Max thing, I was like, okay, yeah, like, I could see how I should have been a little more calm when I brought up that topic. And so I really, like, took that to heart, and I don't think we had an argument again for, like, a really long time, if I remember correctly. Let's see here. Okay, so another example of trusting yourself and trusting your gut was, like, probably our third, fourth maybe time together, we went and watched some fights with a bunch of people from the gym. And after that, he invited everybody to his house for, like, after party. And we had been drinking already, so everyone was kind of buzzed, and we took Ubers back to his place, and somehow I ended up in the front seat and he ended up in the back seat with one of my friends, female friend, on his lap. And I just knew that whole ride home, like, I knew something was going on back there. Like, you know, when you just, there's that vibe that, like, a whispery type of vibe. I don't know. It was dark though, and I couldn't, like, I was trying to use a rear view mirror to, like, look back, but I couldn't see anything. And so I don't think I'm, like, actively mad at this point, but I'm like, this is weird. Like, I feel like there's something going on back there. And so when we stopped at the liquor store on the way home, I'm like, I'll go run in, because I just, like, didn't want to be in the car. So I run in to the liquor store and am, like, getting whatever, and then he appears and he just, like, kisses me in the middle of the liquor store, and it was, like, really, it sounds not romantic, but it was. And he was just being, like, really sweet in the store. And now looking back on it, again, I do think that was an example of manipulation, because I don't know if he could tell that I knew something, or if he was just, like, wanting to make sure that, like, let me go on with this story. So anyways, he follows me in, and then we go to his place. And then once we get there, even, he's still, like, mainly talking to this girl, and it's starting to piss me off a lot. And so eventually I just went to his room and, like, stayed in there for I don't know how long. And then eventually, like, he just appeared in there, and we became intimate, and he, like, you know, didn't even go out to say goodbye to anybody. He just, like, stayed in the room with me, and then we were talking forever. We would always talk for, like, hours into the night. And so, yeah, everyone just eventually left, I guess, because they didn't see him anymore. And, you know, I thought that was kind of sweet. Like, wow, he didn't even care about all of his other friends. Like, he just stayed in here with me. And then the next day, I remember asking him, because I still can't be 100% sure, but I'm like 99% sure that he asked if I would have a threesome with the girl who he had been like flirting with all night and me. And so going back to the liquor store, I think now that he was trying to set the stage for that, but he had to make sure that I was still happy, or otherwise I wouldn't participate. So I really think it was all a plan, and a big reason why I think that now is because I have since talked to that friend. Like, we got a lot closer, and she told me that he straight up told her, like, he wanted to fuck her, and yeah. So all of my instincts were completely accurate that night. And I allowed myself to just be persuaded otherwise, that like, no, what? Like, I don't know. It is really hard in the moment, because like, putting myself back at that time, I really liked him, or I was beginning to. It was early on, but I mean, I trusted him because I'd known him for so long, and you know, we had already worked out that other issue, and he was very mature about it, and he seemed very aware, and so like, I just trusted him. And honestly, I really believe we had something very special, because we would stay up for hours talking about anything, and like always having the best time together. And then I also recently watched a video from Dr. Ramani that saying how I'm not diagnosing him, but people who have some narcissistic traits, one of their methods of control is to impact your sleep, like not let you sleep either. And she says, like, you know, they'll either like wake you up or like keep you awake, I guess. And I mean, I never saw it for like him doing it for that purpose, because I just thought we were just talking because we were enjoying each other's company so much. But it was during a time that he wasn't working and I was still going riding a lot, which meant I was getting up at like 5 a.m, and this would be after staying up until 3 or 4 a.m, even just talking to him about everything. And like, I don't know, I just was so like swept off my feet. And I would deal with it because it was like worth it to me. I was having so much fun, and you know, I would try to get him to come over, because that would have been a lot easier for me lots of times, instead of having to like pack my bag with my riding stuff and everything I would need for the next day. It'd be so much easier if he would just come and sleep here. He could sleep in and leave whenever he wanted, but I'd be home and I'd have all my stuff, plus my dogs I had to feed. And so if I was to go over to his place, like, I would need to figure out like who was going to feed them in the morning, and then also have to like I had a foster dog for a period of time there, and so that was another like really big commitment that I was dealing with at the time. And he knew about all of them, and still like never once made it easier for me by coming to my house. I always went there. And I eventually just stopped trying, because the last time that I tried, he just made up so many excuses not to come. And again, I believed him at the time. He told me that his car got a flat tire, and so I called him, and very carefully, because we had already had that conversation about how I didn't approach arguments calmly, and I needed to approach arguments more calmly. So I very calmly said, I don't understand why a flat tire is urgent. First of all, he has 2 different vehicles, actually 3 at that time. And second, like, I could come pick him up or he could Uber. Like, why did a flat tire mean that he, like, couldn't come over? And he went into this whole explanation about how, well, my BMW is chambered, so the wheels are like that, and a flat tire can fuck up the wheels, and it's really expensive if you don't get it fixed right away. I have no idea or not if that's true, but that's what he told me. And he's like, yeah, I'll just go there real quick. Hopefully it'll be real easy for them to switch it out. And then, of course, they like didn't have his tires or whatever, and he was like, I'm not gonna be able to come, sorry. And like, I had like cleaned the whole house for him, and I was really disappointed. Yeah, back to the lessons that I learned though. Okay, another one is that don't feel bad for having needs, because there's somebody out there who will happily go above and beyond your needs for you because they care about you. And one of the big issues that went on throughout this whole situationship was that he, ever since like that first romantic evening, he like was a horrible texter after that, and that persisted throughout the relationship. But sometimes it would bother me more than other times, and especially when like we'd go for days sometimes and he just wouldn't reach out. And then the big reason why this bugged me so much, and it wouldn't have normally, was because he wasn't even working at this time, and it was during COVID, and I knew he was doing every day because he was doing the same thing, like playing Call of Duty and being on his phone. So I knew he had his phone, he had the time, he wasn't busy, but yet he was still just not texting me, even after I told him that it makes me sad when I don't hear from him all day. Like, I'm not one to have a texting conversation, but when I don't even, like, you don't even say good morning or how's your day or anything like that, it makes me feel like you literally don't even think about me during the day. And so, you know, I had that conversation with him so many times and never really changed at all. And then my birthday came around, and I think this is probably the biggest example of love bombing in this whole thing, because he forgot my birthday was even coming up, and I reminded him like early so that he could figure something out, because I just knew he wasn't going to remember it. He had told me already that he was really bad about remembering birthdays, and that's a whole other thing in itself. If the person you're dating can't even remember your birthday, fuck that person. Don't even tolerate that shit. There's no excuse. With all of the reminders that are available to you on your phone, on your computer calendars, like, there's no excuse. So don't take that excuse from anybody, ever. Unless they have, like, you know, memory loss or something like that. But he did not. And so there was no reason why he couldn't remember my birthday, but I had a feeling he wasn't going to remember my birthday since he had warned me that he wouldn't. So I reminded him, like, I don't know, a couple days or a week out, so that he at least had, and I think it was just a couple of days out, so that he had at least enough time to, like, pull some shit together. And so my birthday came, and the plan was for me to go to his house, obviously, and bring all my dogs with me, so that, you know, it made it a little bit easier if I just brought them with me, and their food. So that's what he did. And I get there, and he went and got this, like, huge inflatable pool, and it needed like a automatic air pump because it was like gigantic. It had like 3 separate sections and everything, and so then he didn't have like an air pump or something, but he could use his car to pump it up. So he had to drive his car all the way around the back alleyway and back it in to that, so that it could be attached to this thing. And then he also, when I got there, had presents for all of my dogs and for me. And then there was also another gift, but it didn't get there till later. But he made sure that I knew. He was like, this was a lot, okay? Like, I really tried for this. Like, I hope, I don't know, it kind of making it seem like, you know, like I'm trying. Like, look at all of this that I did for you. Like, this was a lot of work for me, and I did it for you. Like, that was how I was meant to take it. And then things were fine for a little while after that. But then only a few weeks later, like, you know, his texting, I noticed, was like really bad again. And I even said, I'm like, you know, I feel bad because like you did so much for my birthday, and I know like that type of stuff matters more than a text, but you know, I'm still feeling like, oh, it was because like I said something to him and like, you know, didn't get an answer, or like, you know, wasn't, I don't know, it's hard to remember, but I ended up saying, like, kind of trying to make it into a joke. I was like, oh, well, you either think I'm really boring or you just don't want to talk to me, something like that. Like, try to make it a stupid joke. Not funny, but, like, bring attention to it without it being like, why aren't you texting me? And so, he's like, you know, I've told you that's not true, that's not the case. And I was like, I know that's what you say, and I know we just had this big thing for my birthday, but I still feel like when I don't hear from you, it's because you're not thinking about me. Like, you know that this is something that's important to me, and you just still choose not to do it. And I was like, I feel bad because you just did all this for my birthday. And he like latched onto that right away. He's like, yeah, I just thought, like, you know, I did all this for your birthday, and I thought we're making so much progress, and then I make one mistake, and now it's like we're back to square one. And I was like, well, no, we're not back to square one, but like, you know, this is still an issue that's upsetting me. And so anyway, as that one gets resolved again somehow. And, you know, there were other weird things, too. How, like, you know, he was really close with his niece and nephew, and I would bring him out to the barn with me sometimes when I would go riding, and I kept saying, like, oh, you should bring your niece and nephew. Like, this would be so fun. And, you know, I could take them on pony rides. Like, we have lots of safe ponies here, and they would have a blast. And he never once even considered bringing them. Like, always just told me flat out no. And I always thought that was odd, because I'm like, it felt like, what, do you like not want them to meet me because you don't plan on keeping me around? Spoiler alert, that was it. And so things like that, you know, that I like pushed away to the back of my mind so many times, that now I just wish I would have, like, and I do think partially I didn't want to see the truth. Like, I wanted to keep living this lie that we had this amazing relationship that was so much fun and great sex, and like he had his own house, and you know, like, was financially very stable, which is something that I don't have. And yeah, it was, I don't want to say it was too good to be true, because it wasn't perfect, but I mean, I don't know. I really think I just fell in love with the person who I thought he was. And even though there were all those signs that I picked up on and noticed, like, I just never acted on them. And I was too willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I was too focused on being the cool girl that, like, you know, I don't get mad, I don't get upset, like, no, like, walk all over me, I don't care, like, that's fine, I'll be a doormat, whatever. And yeah, it did get to a point where one time in particular, he just flat out, like, really insulted me. And it was like, you know, he had been drinking and so was I, so there was that. But he made some kind of joke about, like, oh, well, talking to me. He was like, I think, like, calling me trash or something. And I was like, well, that makes you trash too, because, like, you know, we're having sex or whatever. And he's like, no, sometimes you just want to fuck some trash. And something along those lines, basically saying, like, I'm trash and he just wants to fuck some trash. And so I was like, that really, like, crossed a line with me. And so I was really serious about, like, don't say that. Like, that's not funny to me. Like, we started off this relationship thing with me being concerned about you using me. I'm never going to find a joke like that funny. Like, that is too sensitive of a topic for me, and you know that because of all these conversations that we've had. And I was pretty pissed, and I just, like, wasn't laughing anymore, wasn't flirting with him anymore. Like, we were laying down, and I just was kind of, like, silent because I didn't like it, and he really wasn't apologizing. And so eventually he did, and I remember after that, like, he just, like, cuddled me really tightly, and he didn't even try to have sex with me. I probably would have had sex with him, to be honest. But he didn't even try. And so, again, like, sending all these signals in my mind that, like, okay, no, like, now he feels bad, and he, even though he's a very sexual person, like, he's not even trying to have sex with me right now because he knows I'm upset. Like, in my head, these are my thoughts at the time of, like, these are green flags, like, these are good things. But I don't know. And this is where I can't take all the responsibility, because he really was a liar, and he really was very manipulative. And yeah, he was all of those things, or both of those things, but I also was more than willing to buy into his lies, because I wanted to believe him, and I wanted to think that there's no way he could be so cruel or heartless. And okay, and so then like, about a month or so later is when we get into the fight that ultimately ended the relationship. And I don't want to, like, get into that conversation, because that's a lot. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that right now. But I specifically remember, you know, we had the argument. He did just like he did back when we had the argument about the mask. He literally just was like, I'm out of here, I'm done. And gave me a complete cold shoulder for, I don't know how long it would have gone on, but after 2 weeks, I finally messaged him, and I'm like, this is really fucked up. Like, I don't even know what's going on. You won't speak to me, and it's been 2 weeks, and, like, what the fuck? And so finally, he agreed to talk to me, and I met up at his house to talk, and you know, he just says all the right things, but if I were to really listen, it's just empty words. Like, it's so obvious that it's empty words. Like, you know, he went into this whole spiel about, like, I just realized that when we argue, I get so triggered because that's how it was towards the end of my last relationship. It was just arguments, and so I just really don't want that anymore. And also realize that I'm not fully healed from those, like, from those wounds. That's why it's so affecting me so much again. So I'm thinking in my head, like, wow, I think I even told him, like, you are very emotionally aware. Like, that's a good thing, again. And, like, you know, so he goes into this whole talk about how he needs to work on himself and all this. And I ended up telling him that I loved him, like, I fell in love with him and whatever. And he, like, I just told him that because I just wanted him to know, like, this is how I feel. I want you to know. And maybe he felt, like, pressured, but he goes into this long-winded explanation of, like, like, you're my best friend, and you're the only person I hang out with now, and I have the best time with you, and, like, all the feelings are there, but it's just not love yet to me. And, like, the most long-winded explanation just to say that, like, I'm sorry, I don't feel the same way. Like, that's all you had to say. And instead, like, he has to spin a whole story about how he kind of almost loves me, but not yet. And then I remember he said also he didn't want to continue things with me right now. He made sure to say right now. Never just saying, like, it's over, it's not going to work. Just saying, I am starting back at work and I just need to get my life organized again, and then we can try again. Or, like, you know, because I think I said I didn't want it to be over, or I wasn't ready for it to be over. And he was like, no, I'm not either, but I'm starting back at work and I can't have the stress of wondering if I'm texting you enough on top of, like, getting ready, going back to work and starting a new job. Again, very reasonable. Like, that's something I can understand. But then, a month after this conversation, a month or so, he gets a brand new puppy, a German Shepherd. And he always loved my German Shepherd that I brought to his house all the time. And then he gets a German Shepherd when he said that he is worried about being too busy and doesn't have time for anything. So there was that. And then, yeah, a couple months later, he was with a new girl. And, you know, I was so under his spell. That's the best way to put it. Under his spell, that, you know, I just still fully believe that we had a really special relationship, and you know, there was a chance in the future that we would try things again. And it took, like, 4 months after I found out about his girlfriend, and again, like, I made the effort to go up to him and be like, I'm really happy for you that you found somebody, and I don't, like, you know, I don't want it to be awkward between us. Like, I think it's great, and, you know, I'm not always trying to start fights with you, because that was another thing. He made me feel like I just always wanted to fight with him, which I'm not that type of person. And so I made that clear to him. I'm like, stop making me out to be something that I'm not, and I never have been. And yeah. And any time that, like, I was feeling really low about things and I'd reach out to him, he'd always just be so happy, like, his life's so great. And it would hurt so bad, because those times when I reached out to him were when I was really missing him, and to hear him just be like, life's great, and I'm over here crying or something. And then, like, after the, like, big fight and breakup thing, a couple months later was the closest I came to breaking out of the spell for a very long time. I just was thinking clearly, I guess, for the first time in a while. And So I made a whole note, like, in my phone about how, like, when you care about somebody the way that I care about you and the way that you said you cared about me, you can't, like, you're not able to treat them so cruelly like you did to me. You're not able to just flip a switch and they're out of your life and you're fine and it's not a big deal. Like, you can't do that when you're sincerely, like, not in love, because he wasn't, but like any sort of like close feeling with somebody, like, you're not able to do that. And so there was like lots of those sorts of things, like, why did you say this when in reality this is what ended up happening, and bringing all of these arguments to the surface, and eventually went and talked to him about it. And I can't even remember. The only thing I really remember was that he was like, well, I could sit down and like write, because it was a pretty long note, and I just read it to him, and he was like, I can write it back if you send it to me, like, I'll answer all of it. And I was like, no, like, I know this is a lot, I just want to hear, like, or I don't know, maybe I gave him like a place to start. And from then on, he just gave me like the craziest, weirdest explanation of like, well, Jill, if that was the case, then you could even say that when I can't even paraphrase it because it was so insane. Like, basically he was doing what I did, where I like took specific examples and like pointed out the inconsistencies. He was like, well, if you think that, then you must also think that when I did this, it actually meant that, because I was already thinking about that, and like made it so complicated, and like it sounded like he knew what he was saying, because I couldn't follow it at all, because it was just like gibberish, literally. But he said it very confidently, and he's like, yeah, because if you think that, then that would mean that during this time I was actually thinking about this, and then, so if that's true, then I would have been thinking about this, and like, that just can't be true. And it sounded complicated, so I was like, yeah, I guess it can't be, because I don't really even get what you're saying to me. And so yeah, and then at the end of the conversation, he like offered me a beer, and we were just sitting. He had his puppy at the time, so I was playing with his puppy, and he's like, yeah, like, I like this. I like you being able to come over and us hang out as friends. Like, this is awesome. And then, I was like joking, not really, because our friend from the gym was fighting like that weekend or the next week or something. Yeah, I think it was the next week. And so I was like, because I would really love to come here and watch the fights, because that was something him and I always used to do. And yeah, he was like, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I might have something going on, but that would be really fun. Like, I'll text you and let you know about Saturday. Never heard from him again. So yeah, then a couple months after that is when I saw his relationship, but I had been just completely, pretty willingly, even though I brought up all those issues to him, like, I didn't want him to tell me the truth, I think. Like, I was more than willing to accept a subpar explanation, because the alternative is horrible, and no one wants to think that they fell in love with somebody who was literally just using them for sex the whole time, and was so convincing that, like, I don't know. So anyway, where was I going with all this? I had like a final lesson that I had learned. Oh, I guess basically to wrap it all up, I, ever since, like, from that conversation until almost a year after that, so like basically a year since the breakup, I took his explanation for what it was. And I was like, yeah, no, it was real. We had a real connection, but it didn't work out. And, like, I just left it at that. And that's what basically, he said, you're gonna have to just believe whatever you want to believe, because nothing I say is gonna convince you otherwise. And honestly, I have to say, that is a good point. Like, none of his explanations were, like, really very good explanations now, because, like, what I was saying was completely true. But he just made the point of, like, nothing I say is gonna satisfy you, so you're just gonna have to, like, basically decide what you're gonna believe. Like, and he didn't say it in those words, but that was the gist of it. And so I decided to believe that it was real, and that, like, you know, maybe we will try again in the future. And like, whatever, that's the assumption I kept for a really long time, until I didn't, because I found out about, like, the lies about, like, from the very beginning with my friend, who he tried to have a threesome with me, which he never owned up to, even though I asked him about it. And yeah, a lot of things came to light, and I don't want to go into all of them right now, because, again, that's a lot too. But I just got some real talk slapped into me and came to my senses, and it literally was like I was waking up out of a dream. Like, reality just dawned on me, and the veil was lifted. Like, I know this is very dramatic language, but that's how it felt. Like, I've never been in that type of scenario before, or had that kind of feeling where it was like this whole fantasy just suddenly was vanished, and I was just faced with the cold, ugly truth. And it fucking wrecked me. Like, because when I think about it, I healed from the relationship over that year, but I healed under the pretense that, like, it had been a really great relationship and it just wasn't going to work out. And that's a lot different than, he lied to me the entire time. He never wanted anything with me, anything more than sex. And right after his whole, like, stupid fling with me, he ends up getting together with the girl who he is now engaged to. And so I think the biggest thing here is that if he wanted to, he would. And that goes for anything. If he wants you to be his girlfriend, he'd ask you. If he wants to talk to you, he'll text you or call you. If he wants you in his life, he'll find a way to be in your life and to have you in his. Like, if he wants to, he will. That, like, I don't know. I knew that before, but like I said, this relationship was just so strange and crazy. But now I'm going to double down on that. And then the other thing is trusting your gut. If something feels off, it is. And don't let somebody tell you that your feelings are wrong. That's gaslighting, I learned. And then the last thing would be that you have to, this is so, like, I feel like such an overused phrase, but you have to believe that your needs are important enough that they get met in a relationship. Like, so for my situation, like, I was, like, you know, every so often being like, hey, like, your texting is getting really bad again. Like, can you please text more? That type of behavior from me was telling him that, like, okay, she doesn't like it, but if I'm just a little bit better for a couple of weeks, then she'll drop it and forget about it again. Like, I don't really have to change anything. Like, she's just gonna deal with it. And that's because I didn't really, like, I didn't even believe that need was valid at all. Like, I would always preface the conversation with, like, I know this is so dumb and, like, I shouldn't care about this, but it just really bothers me if I don't hear from you. Like, I diminished my own value in those cases. And yeah, while I still think, he has a lot to be ashamed of, and he acted like less than human. Like, just the lengths that he went to of lying to me are unfathomable and just disgusting. When I look at him now, like, I feel utter disgust. But beyond his role in everything, I have to recognize my role in everything, and my role in being complicit, really. Like, I didn't ever push for more clarity or more commitment or more change. Nothing. Like, I was very willing to just go along with his version of events and let him talk me out of my, like, what's the word? Talk me out of any kind of, like, concern that I brought up. And again, bringing attention to how I would bring up a concern that I had, and throughout the conversation it would end up with something I did is making him mad. And, like, that's okay. Like, of course, if he has an issue with me, he should talk to me about it. But when I'm coming to you, my partner, with an issue, there was no accountability on his part. He would just say things to make himself the victim and to make it so that in some way it was actually my fault that the situation was even occurring. And the thing most of all, like, why it was all such a shock at the end when the veil was lifted, was because I have been in shitty relationships before, and I honestly felt like I knew what to watch out for and what to be skeptical of, and, to what, all of the common red flags to check for. Like, I knew all of them. And, like, that's why when we had the conversation the first time and he talked it out with me and it was so mature, like, okay, green flag. When, he really insulted me, but then he made up for it much better, green flag. The way he went all out for me on my birthday, green flag. There were all of the typical red flags that I look for were green with him. And so I think this is something that has really, like, bothered me this whole relationship, or the aftermath of it, is, like, how was I so fooled? How was I, like, completely swept away by him? And I don't have a full answer, but I have to say that the situation, the whole relationship, would have been avoided if I just trusted my gut and, valued my own needs in a relationship. Like, with those two things, I it would have ended so much sooner than it did, and it would have saved me a lot of hurt and a lot of wasted time and a lot of lack of sleep due to him. And I just was so, I don't know, I think I've kind of always been this way, where I just want to please the other person in the relationship, and I want to show them how good I can be for them, and then I'll change their mind once they see how good I am. And also something I don't like to, something that's not fun to realize, but even me doing that, like, oh, well, he doesn't want a relationship right now, but he will once he gets to know me, or whatever the thought is, like, that's me being manipulative to him. Like, he's telling me he doesn't want a relationship, and I'm saying okay, but in my head I'm thinking, well, you will once you, like, see how awesome I am. That's manipulation too. And so I think that's another big takeaway is, and this is actually something I've learned from Matthew Hussey, is that when any man is saying something to you that is going to decrease his likelihood of having sex with you, it's probably true, because he wouldn't say it if it wasn't. He wouldn't say something that would make sex less attainable unless it was true. And I mean, that might sound kind of shitty, but Matthew Hussey has a point about that. So when this guy said to me, I don't want a relationship right now, like, in my head, I mean, I don't know if I wanted a relationship right off the bat either, but then towards the end I definitely did. But I was actually happy just to continue the way things were for a while. But yeah, this is all rambling now. Yeah, so I wish that I would have trusted my gut feelings. Oh, hi, Luna. Hi. Ooh, can you move? Luna, lay down, please. Lay down. Good girl. Good girl. Thank you. Yeah, so I think the biggest takeaways from this are, like I said, the first one, if he wanted to, he would. The second one is trust my instincts. And the third one is to understand what my needs are and advocate for myself and my needs, because they can and should be met. And then the last one is, I just said it. What was the last one? Hey. Stop. Oh, the last one is that when he's telling you something that is detrimental to him having sex with you, it's probably true. So believe him when he tells you something you don't want to hear. That's probably a better way to say it. The last lesson is to believe him when he says something that you don't want to hear. And that, my friends, is my spiel about how I was complicit in my own heartbreak. And I hope that this helps somebody eventually, save somebody some pain that I had to go through, and I still am working through. But every day is better. Anyways, bye.